Bad game design. If you've, played a video game, you don't need me to explain what bad game design is. This section is too punishing, that section requires too much of the player, this other section is just straight up boring. Usually, bad game design is a mistake. Sometimes there's a good idea with bad execution, sometimes there's a bad idea someone genuinely thought was a good idea, other times, someone just didn't think about the consequences of a decision. But what happens when you intentionally make a bad decision? I'm not talking about predatory things like arcade quarter munchers or pay-to-win games or sabotaging the game. I'm asking what happens when a developer says, I know this is a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyway, because it's part of the artistic vision. I'm asking what happens when you try to make bad game design add to the experience. Okay, my first example is kind of cheating, but I wanted 3 different subtopics to talk about, and this is the first one that came to mind. Everyone vaguely familiar with 80s and 90s arcade games knows how unfair they can be. I'm not technically talking about those games, but I'm talking about new games that emulate the feel and the difficulty of old arcade games. The one that's been on my mind the most recently is Salamander 3. It's a weird game, made fairly recently and released in 2025 solely as part of Gradius Origins, which otherwise consists of a selection of 5 other arcade games in the Gradius series. Salamander 3 touts itself as being the answer to the question, what if a sequel to Salamander 2 was released in the 90s? Even down to making you insert coins like the other genuine arcade games in the collection. In fact, it does the job a little too well, as there's a few times that the difficulty is unfair. The most blatant example is the Moai boss, who has this attack where he'll create 4 laser turrets and have them sweep across the screen, leading to an unavoidable hit if you're foolish enough to stay in the center of them. It's a cheap knowledge check and an easy boss in an otherwise good game. I don't know for sure that it's intentionally unfair, but it sure feels like it, right? I mean, it's not a real arcade game. Konami doesn't get more money for squeezing credits out of you. I don't know anything quite like this in a real arcade game, but it's not out of place, right? There are other difficulty spikes in this game, like the first boss flying in from behind the screen in an awkwardly shaped tunnel, or the entirety of the final level. In the latter's case, I'm not good enough at the game to know if the difficulty spike there should truly be considered unfair. To some, these abrasive design choices are fun to overcome. I find it fun sometimes. Depends on the game. There are probably better examples of what this is like, but I've been playing Gradius Origins a lot recently, so that's what I picked. By the way, Gradius Origins is a pretty dang good collection, so you might want to check it out if you're into old arcade shmups. Just make sure you check the controls. There's at least a few people who think bombs don't work in this collection because they don't realize it's a separate button. Don't be like them. Sometimes a developer makes a bad decision because they think it's funny. My favorite example of this is from Star of Providence. Star of Providence has these special rooms called shortcuts that are supposed to give the feeling of run-down and forgotten-about closets, and often have goodies in them. Back when the game was known as Monolith, there was a special shortcut, the infamous Pure Room. This room had 2 sections, the top section that could be accessed from the left, right, and top entrances, and the bottom section, only accessible from below. In the bottom section, there are 2 plus 10% damage upgrades, additive. This was a wildly unbalanced reward in a game with otherwise very tight and consistent balance, as your ending damage was expected to be about 150% of its starting value. In Star of Providence, most items will break if you leave the room, to prevent hoarding. So if you don't know what's coming, say goodbye to 20% damage. Oh, and to make things worse, there is the even more cruel Reverse Pure Room, which had a 5% damage upgrade in the top section and nothing in the bottom. Just when you learn to always enter from the lower door when possible. Into Oblivion, a major update in early 2025, removed Pure Rooms as part of a rework to shortcuts to give every floor their own shortcut pool. Except, Into Oblivion also gave most floors their own set of similar rooms, sometimes called neo-pure rooms, that kept the essence of the pure rooms while giving far greater variety in rewards and winning entrance locations, so that it wasn't just a knowledge check that sometimes backfired. The update also added a plethora of additional ways to bypass getting unlucky, like the buff to the blink upgrade that lets it teleport 1 block wide gaps. And sadly, I don't have any footage of these neo-pure rooms, because shortly after the release of the update, they were removed in a series of minor patches. And I don't want to figure out how to downpatch a Steam game for this short segment. I'm genuinely disappointed that they were removed, but to be honest, as funny as pure rooms are, the game's probably better off without them. I hate to admit it, but a lot of people didn't think it was funny. The developers probably know this too, which is probably why they were removed after the developers had their laugh. My example for this section is Zero Ranger, my favorite shmup I've played so far in my life. Now, if you haven't played Zero Ranger before, major spoilers for the final boss and the true final boss. Actually, that puts me in an awkward position. The finale of this game is a very divisive section. You either absolutely love it or you absolutely hate it, no in between. And either way, the finale of this game will hit much harder if you don't know what happens. I know this game is old, but proceed at your own risk. Okay, you've just beaten the grueling final boss, and went through the escape sequence, and you fail. You destroy the enemy mothership, but are knocked unconscious in the ensuing explosion, and the villain's remaining lackeys destroy the remains of humanity while you're out cold. But you have one last-ditch effort option. Go back in time and stop the events that lead to your ultimate failure. You accept, and go back in time to fight the origin of all of the disaster, Sacred Guardian. I think that's what its name is. The weight of the future is on your shoulders, and not just in the story. In going back in time, you destroy the future you went to save. If you lose, the game's story is reset. You fail to change history, the events that lead to your inevitable failure all repeat, and you have to start the entire game all over again. Objectively speaking, this is horrible. But the atmosphere of the fight, the tension, and the tangible threat of failure all come together to make this fight feel outstanding. You really truly feel like you're the main character in this moment. You're the Zero Ranger. Plus, it's only like 40 minutes to make up lost progress if you fail. But the atmosphere doesn't land for everyone. If you can't get into this fight, you're not going to appreciate the punishment. And someone who loves this fight and doesn't mind having to replay the game, I don't blame anyone who hates it. But I do hope that anyone who hates it could see the appeal. Okay, I think that's enough semi-deep dives, but there are several other ideas and examples important to this topic. Not to mention I only used one example from each category. Sometimes you make bad decisions because of limited hardware. If you don't compromise, the game isn't going to work. One example is the original Metroid. There are some great NES games, but this one didn't age particularly well, in my opinion. I do respect what it accomplished. This game is huge by NES standards, and it needed some very creative code to fit that massive world into such a limited system. Very creative, and very inefficient. This game has lag spikes every time it loads a new screen, and slows to a crawl when almost anything happens. UFO 50 is, well, probably a game I don't have to introduce, but I will anyway. It's a collection of 50 retro-style games. The first one in the collection is the infamous Barbuda. In addition to fitting into the first category I talked about, it also teaches a lesson very quickly. With 50 games in the collection, not all of them are going to be up most players' alley, and Barbuda is probably the most niche and unwelcoming game in the collection. Can't talk about intentionally bad game design without mentioning rage games. You know, games that intentionally try to make the player angry, Games like Getting Over It and Jump King, I can't really pretend like I'm qualified to talk about these. I don't play rage games, but I had to mention them. And okay, this one might get me in trouble because of its dedicated cult following, but La Mulana, I won't call it a bad game, but it's an incredibly abrasive one. Hidden death traps, dev-intended soft locks, confusing layouts, and unbelievably esoteric puzzles abound. All while the game is very difficult even when you do know what to do, and has very interesting physics. I would need a dedicated review in order to do this game justice, and even with my eyes glued to a guide, I don't have it in me to play this game a second time. But even a game as aggressively hostile to the player as this one that has its dedicated fans, I did enjoy it sometimes. Okay, I'm recording the outro to this while trying to wrangle a kitten, so you might hear some extra extraneous noises. Like any form of media, there's reasons to break the mold of normality and create something great. Can't always dismiss bad designs as truly bad, might just be for a niche audience. So should you intentionally make, quote, bad decisions, unquote, in your game? Probably not. It's hard to pull off, and even if you do pull it off, it will narrow the audience a lot. But if that's what you want to do, don't let some random, barely known YouTuber who doesn't upload enough stop you. Hey, I make games. In fact, I technically resurrected this channel to talk about them. Have I had intentionally bad game design? Not really. I've made plenty of bad decisions in my games, but they are pretty much all accidents. And the closest thing to an exception is from a game I'm still making. Thank you so much for watching. This is my first attempt at a video essay, and I'm not going to pretend like I didn't make mistakes. I'd love to receive feedback and constructive criticism if you've made it this far. With my slow release schedule and general dissatisfaction with my Let's Play attempts, I plan on doing more things of this nature in the future. If you want to see where that's going, please leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next video.